In the beginning, everything started out as this. I wrote the script for Pilgrimage pretty early on to prepare, but my original practice project was made with a partner, so this is the first time that I was ever writing a script on my own. So it was pretty hard to find inspiration at first, but I made it through. I will find out that writing was the easiest part of this whole process. I had a lot of issues with scheduling with my last film project, so I decided to pick actors that were close to me, so my friends, family of my friends, people that would feel more obligated to give me their time and, not slack off or reschedule. This helped a lot with scheduling, pretty much fixed the whole issue that had been happening last time. I will say the adult actors were harder to schedule with simply because they're adults and they have their own lives and their own schedule. So the way I worked around that was I just had one day that I knew for sure I could film with them, and I just stuck to that day. Despite it being kind of far along in the process, which is nerve-wracking, but I knew it was going to work out in the end, and it did. When it finally came time to film, though, the time I estimated it would take was an extreme underestimate. Going back to that original project, the film setting was my room and my bathroom. This opening was way different from that. On the first day of filming, I would say I probably spent 3 hours out there because so many people were driving up and down the road that I chose to film on, which I just did not anticipate at all. Sometimes it took longer because people would stop us and ask if we were okay because I was laying in a ditch for some of the shots, and my main actor had to fall off a bike for some of the other shots, so they were concerned, and that also just consumed more time. I filmed again. I made sure that my schedule was completely flexible, like all I could worry about was filming that day, just to avoid that, any sort of unforeseen issues. Another thing I learned about timeliness with this project is that nothing is too late. There were multiple scenes I had to add on last minute because I noticed some weird continuity issues while editing. While it was nerve-wracking to run so close to the wire, I got what I wanted to achieve and enhanced my project just a little more. First scene we did was me with the wide eyes because I wanted to get my shot over with. This shot actually took the most out of all of the shots because I had my white eye contacts in, which meant I was pretty much blind, and I had to direct somebody else around because I couldn't direct it because I was the star. This leads me to communication, which is another aspect of production. Again, back to that first film project. The only actor in that project was me, and I was the one filming the whole time, so I had complete control. So it was new to me to have to direct other people around. I could visualize exactly in my head what I wanted, but relaying that to other people was hard. Specifically for complex scenes, my actors would just forget in the middle of doing it what they were going to do next because of how much I wanted them to do. The way I got around that problem was I started talking while actually filming, which definitely helped. At one point, I even had to direct a driver and an actor on a bike at the same time, and there was confusion because I would say speed up, and then the person on the bike would speed up when really I was talking to the person in the car, or I was talking to the person on the bike and the person in the car would speed up, and it was just really hard. So the way I got around that was I would loudly scream the person's name, whoever I was talking to, before I said what I said, just to make sure. If I need to be quiet for a scene but still communicate with my actors, I would use nonverbal signals. Specifically, I'm talking about the 360 pan shot of older Joe walking around his room. I signaled to him to slam the door right when his wife says, "Was it that dream again?" by raising my foot. Going back to those last minute add-on scenes, a lot of them were impromptu and stuff I just made up on the spot. I made the bicycle scene up as I was going, and had no intention of actually using it until it looked good with the rest of the film. This shot was not included in the first script, but the transition from the house to outside seemed too jarring to me. I also had a lot of weird things happen with props. First thing was I could not find a connector wire to the headphones to the Walkman to save my life, so I ended up just taping a random wire to nothing onto the headphone and the Walkman to just fake a wire. A similar thing happened to Mary's cross. So anytime I flipped over, the cross would either fall down the side of my neck or my hair would completely cover my face. So I ended up having to tuck my hair behind my ears before I would roll over and tape the cross to my dress. So my main actor had to ride on a bike that had a flat tire. So for that sequence where he's riding the bike, I cut it up so much because I needed to cut out the parts where it was obvious that he was riding on a flat-tired bike. But I think most of my creativity came from my cinematography. The bike scenes were the most fun, but also the most stressful to film. I had to ride in the back of someone's car, film those shots, so I was in the trunk. I had one hand on the camera and the other on their trunk roof to keep it open while we were moving, which was really hard to keep the camera steady, but I did it. For the dolly zoom, I had my main actor get on this wagon with low sides that was low to the ground, and I had one of my friends push him while I just followed along with the camera to just get that kind of, again, tracking dolly shot. One of my favorite shots of the whole opening is my 360 pan shot of older Joe in the bedroom. That one took a lot of planning. Thankfully, because the actors are older, it wasn't as hard to do as it was with my other actors. I even mapped out the bedroom I used before I did this because I wanted it to be very specific. I wanted him to put his shoes on first, then grab his headphones, then go and slam the door. This is also the only scene that has talking in it, which made me kind of nervous, but it actually turned out pretty good. Even shots that don't look hard were hard. For example, the opening shot through the grass took forever to get right. It was hard to get the phone that low to the ground while also staying steady and then also being able to pan up steady. In the shot where Joe's walking alongside the bike, it looks very simple, but I was actually struggling to keep up with my actor. Overall, as the project progressed, it became easier and easier to make. My skills in planning, timeliness, communication, creativity, and cinematography all advanced enough that by the end, I was flying through filming and producing. I spent a ridiculous amount of time sleuthing through the internet for this film. I watched many YouTube videos about different ways to color grade and just different ways to edit on CapCut. Some examples include: majority of my credits were also found online. I use a website called FontSpace for all of my fonts. The preset fonts on CapCut look cheap and they're just overused. FontSpace gives me nice, new, modern fonts. Moreover, I also found all of my Foley and my non-diegetic sound online. I use different free audio websites to get all of them. So I would either screen record the audio and then extract the sound from the video clip on CapCut, or I would use a YouTube to MP3 converter. I only use that for the main track because I need big chunks of that song. The main thing I used to film was my iPhone 15 Pro. I used the standard camera. Usually there was only one shot that I used the cinematic setting, and it was the shot through the grass. I also used my iPhone to edit everything. I also used it to upload the video on YouTube. My practice project was really low quality because I uploaded it on a phone to YouTube, but I found a way to set my upload resolution to 1080p and was able to upload my final project at full resolution. The only problem I had with using my phone, because I've already had experience with using my phone to edit things, was that it couldn't handle all of the storage. As mentioned before, I use CapCut to edit. I've used CapCut in the past, and it's the only editing software that I know really, really well. I used a lot of different CapCut features to make this project. Unfortunately, you do not have foresight when you film, so turned out when I was editing that a lot of the clips were either way too long or way too short. For some scenes, the whole thing had to be sped up or sped down. An example of this was the 360 pan shot with older Joe. I had to just completely speed it up, just one bump. However, there were also shots that only needed adjusting in certain parts of them. So my example is the ending shot where Joe is running off into the middle of the street. The actor ran from the camera way too fast, but he was running at a perfectly fine speed when he was far away, so I only slowed down the first half of the clip and then slowly sped it back up to speed. I made the color grading for the dream sequence very purple and very saturated, which matches the time period of the 80s. I also kind of wanted to show that these old memories were tinged with rose-colored glasses, literally. Here are some of the settings I used for this color grading. I also put a hazy filter over the entire sequence with young Joe because it kind of blurs the edges, which makes it look more dreamlike. When the scene moves to Joe in bed, I made sure that we got rid of that saturation. I even made it more blue and more like cold. But then when he goes outside, it changes back to that purpley color grading. That wasn't exactly on purpose. The scene where Joe is walking with his phone was filmed at 3 p.m. and the scene where he's running down the street was filmed at 7:30 p.m. So there was a really big change in the lighting. So the purple just kind of smoothed over everything and made that transition not so jarring. I used pretty much none of my raw audio, except for when Joe's wife speaks. All other sounds were added in later as Foley or as non-diegetic sound. I got really lucky because my Foley for the bike falling and the leaves crunching was pretty much perfect. I also added in like a deep bass sound effect after Joe discovers the body to kind of just heighten that tension and really make it feel like a scary moment. I also realized quickly that if you use any sort of outside audio, you need to fade it in and fade it out. If not, it's going to sound clunky and harsh. I use the fade in and fade out specifically on the part where the music is playing out of Joe's headphones. I had the fade in and fade out match where he is on screen to make it seem like the music is also traveling across screen. I also was able to achieve the effect of it sounding like it's coming from his headphones by using just the instrumental version of Don't Dream It's Over, because normally that's all you hear coming from someone's headphones, not the lyrics. And then I also put an LP audio filter over it to just make it sound old and distant. I only used one transition. It was the mix filter. The filter helped make that moment the most dramatic moment of the opening. All in all, I used many aspects of online hardware and software to make this opening, including CapCut, my phone, YouTube, font space, and all the different features CapCut offers.